Guys, today I thought I'm going to do a completely different video for you. I have been asked this question so many times. How do you make a sourdough starter? It requires a lot of attention, and I think if we're going to go through it a little bit, we might as well go through it properly. So I'm going to do a series of sourdough related videos for you, and I'm going to start with the most basic one of them all. How do you actually create a sourdough starter? So let's get right into it. So what do we actually do with a sourdough starter? What is a sourdough starter? Really, it's a culture of lots and lots and lots of amazing bacteria and something we call wild yeast. It's essentially the yeast that you need to make a bread, but we have the natural version of it. So I'm going to show you what mine looks like. And wild yeast is essentially everywhere. It's around us, it's in the atmosphere, it's on our hands, it's in the room, it's on flour, it's really absolutely everywhere. And what we're trying to do with a sourdough starter is capture all of that wild yeast from all over the place and pop it right into a jar so that we can use it to raise our bread naturally. And it's been done for thousands of years, so why shouldn't we do it, right? So I'm going to show you the process of creating a sourdough starter from scratch. If you have never created one, or perhaps you had one and you've abandoned it, or whatever you've done, this is how you start. And you only need a couple of things really. You need a clean jar. You can use a glass jar, you can use a Tupperware for that. I don't really think it makes a huge difference. I've been doing it in many different tins and jars and glasses and who knows what, and it's always produced the results that I wanted. So all good, don't worry. As long as it's not got any bleach in it or any soapy things in it, that's perfect. I've got my jar, I've got my flour, which is the next really important bit. Flour and the quality of the flour is a tremendous factor for the success of your sourdough starter and also for the success of your baking any sourdough bread. So I chose to use a 00 flour for my sourdough starter. The reason why I do that is because I find a 00 flour creates a really nice consistency. It's not too strong. A 00 flour doesn't have too much protein in it, and it's also not too weak, so it's not like a plain flour. It's a little bit in between that, and it's the perfect flour to create something that's robust, lasts me well, is exactly right at the times I need, and actually the quality is really key here. Try to refrain from supermarket bought flour here. I try to stick to a flour that I know really well, good quality flour, perhaps from local mills, or perhaps do a little bit of research online. I can put you a description in the description below. I'm going to put you a couple of different flour brands that I really like to work with, that I think are really good quality. But it's totally up to you. As long as you make sure you get a flour that is not old, no more than 6 months old, and also has good quality, good reputation. That's the key to a really good sourdough starter. And the last thing you need is a little bit of water. And that's really it. That's all you need to create your sourdough starter from scratch. So let me show you how to get from flour, water, glass jar to this lovely guy. So to make your starter, you start by pouring in the water. And I add in about 100 grams. I keep it all very simple right at the beginning and always stick to the exact same measures. The amount of flour and the amount of water always has to be the same, so right at the beginning anyway, so that we can make sure that we create a consistent batch of sourdough starter. So I add the same amount of flour right in there. And that's basically already it. Make sure it's the exact same, and then you know what your base is and what you can work with. Now we're going to stir this around. And now you've got your starter base sorted for the first time. What happens from here, basically? This is now obviously where all of the magic comes in. You're going to now cover your starter, and I tend to use just a glass lid. Pop it on like that, slightly ajar. You always want a little bit of air to come into your starter, because remember how I said, in the air is all of your wild yeast. That's what you want to capture. You want to capture everything you can. So don't place it on like that. You're going to suffocate the poor thing. And you want to make sure it gets a little bit of airflow. And then you place it into an environment that's ideally around 26 degrees. Okay, if it's really cold where you are, place it in a cupboard. Put a hot water bottle next to it and close the cupboard. If it's really hot where you are, place it in a cooler room to make sure it doesn't actually go too fast. It grows very fast then and actually could over acidify very, very quickly. A couple of words about your starter and how you're going to go from now before I show you the next video next time on how to maintain your starter and actually get it ready to use and store it. The water is really important. The temperature of the water is really important. Your water should always be around 26 degrees. 26 degrees is when a white starter, and this is what we're making, feels very, very comfortable. It develops lactic acid bacteria, and they are really nice and sweet and milky. It's the stuff that makes your bread really lovely and sweet. Anything below that is really good for a darker starter, like a rye starter, for example. You can make this entire process with a rye starter by just using rye flour instead. And colder water will encourage bacteria such as acetic acid. So they are a little bit more pungent and you can smell them quite a lot more. They'll make a loaf that's a little bit more strong in flavor, okay? But we want to encourage this lovely lactic acid bacteria for this white, lovely starter. And I'm going to leave this at room temperature for a good 24 hours now. And tomorrow I'm going to come back to it, feed it again, but I'll take off about 50% of this starter and chuck it away. Now, the reason why I do that is because I want to keep it young, I want to keep it fresh, and I want to keep in control of how much bacteria I actually feed into this starter. So every day for the next probably week, it might take you a little bit less, I'm going to feed this guy every day with 100 grams of water and 100 grams of flour, but I always take off half just before I do that, so that you keep in control of the exact amount. You'll always end up with the same amount, and you can also control how fast it then rises. By day 5 and day 6, I'm going to show you in my next video how you can control actually how fast it peaks and how fast it grows, which is something we're going to look at next time. For now, keep feeding your starter every day for the next week, and we'll be looking into the next parts of sourdough starter, maintenance, how to get it ready, and how to get it to look as lovely as this guy in the next one. Thank you very much, guys, for watching.